Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to Trash Talk, which is a discussion panel on recycling in the city of Philadelphia and at Penn. My name is Dan Garofalo. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator at the University of Pennsylvania. And this panel discussion is part of RecycleMania 2010 at Penn. It's a 10-week competition between over 500 colleges and universities in the United States and Canada. Campuses compete in several categories: waste minimization and overall highest recycling rate as part of the competition. And at the end of last year's RecycleMania, Penn had a recycling rate of 21.4%. This year our goal is to reach 30% over the 10 weeks of the competition. We're close right now. We're actually tracking at over 27%, which is great. And you can keep track of our progress at www.upenn.edu/sustainability. And we're here today in this videotaped discussion to explore what happens to recyclables once you dispose of them on campus and also, answer questions about recycling in Philadelphia and at the university. So we have 7 panelists in a discussion format to answer these questions. I'm pleased to introduce Clarena Tolson, the Philadelphia Streets Commissioner, Shannon Detweiler from Blue Mountain Recycling, which is the facility that's used by both the city and the university. JoAnn Murphy is Director of Purchasing. Laurie Cousart, Director of Penn Dining. Ken Ogawa, Executive Director of Penn's Operations and Maintenance. Amy Phillips is the Senior IT Leader at Penn Information Systems and Computing. And finally, at the end, Dan Sanchez is a Senior in the Engineering School. You're a Senior? Okay. Yeah. And he's going to represent the student perspective. So why don't we just kick off? I'd like to start with a couple questions for Commissioner Tolson. So you're the Streets Commissioner. Your department is responsible for promoting and managing the city's recycling programs. So from the city's perspective, why is recycling important?
Sure. First, I'll say good afternoon to everyone. Recycling is of the utmost importance to all of us in the city, and certainly in our nation and world. The most important thing that we need to remember about why we want to recycle or reduce our waste through waste minimization is that we need to conserve our natural resources. We do not have an unlimited set of resources to support our present community or the generations to come. So it's our number one goal or number one reason why we do what we do. Supporting that and more practical and tactical for the city and certainly for the university is that recycling also saves us money. It saves us money because the economy is such that we have created marketplaces for our products, our commodities that can be reused and recycled. There is real value, monetary value, just not intrinsic value, but there's monetary value in recycling. If I were to dispose of a ton of any material in a landfill or an incinerator, it's going to cost me $64, not just me, but the taxpayers in the city, $64 for that 1 ton. Those same materials, if we were able to reuse them after they have been reprocessed and recycled, those materials at this very time, we are paid $5 a ton. There was a time in our history where we were paid as much as $44 a ton for material, so almost a $100 swing or difference in value to the city for those commodities. So I would say that recycling, no matter what level you like to look at it, is of value to you. Is a value to if you want to look at it from a global perspective in our world at large, or if you want to look at it at a very practical level in terms of your own pocketbook, it makes a difference.
Thanks. I know that the city recently launched a Philadelphia Recycling Rewards program. Mm-hmm. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Sure.
How that figures into our plans.
We're very excited about the Philadelphia Recycling Rewards program. This is a program where we provide incentives to our citizens for their recycling efforts. People are provided bonus points, reward points, if you would, for all the materials that they move to the recycling side of their set out versus the trash side of their set out. And for that, they're rewarded points that at the end of the year, at any point where they want to redeem them, have real value as coupons at use at stores like a Starbucks or an Acme, things like that. On the same hand, there also is a value and bonus for not only recycling, but also for reducing trash, which is a real benefit that we see through this program. That people, as they reduce the amount of trash that they set out, they also will be able to receive bonus points or rewards for this incentive. We have started this program just recently. It is started in probably our poorest performing areas, and we're moving through the city, going from our poorest performers in terms of those that are setting out the most or the least amount of recycling to those that are setting out the most amount of recycling presently, recycling as measured by diversion. So we'll be moving through the city. This section of the city is kind of in the middle of that. It'll be the third area, the third out of 6 areas that we move to. So there's some room for improvement in this community. But we're excited about what it's going to do. Overall, the city's recycling rate right now is about 18%. By the end of this fiscal year, we'll probably be near 20%. And we're expecting that with our incentive program that we're going to see numbers that are going to shoot the roof off of those.
That's terrific. I know that it wasn't that long ago that the city had single digits, so we're making a lot of progress on that. And I know the mayor has talked publicly about making Philadelphia the greenest city in the country. And when you come to Philly, you can't see the operational changes we've made, but what you do see are the recycle bins downtown. And I know that the Philadelphia Throws Green program is very visible. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, how successful it's been and what's involved?
Sure, that's part of the strategy to make Philadelphia the greenest city in America, if not the world. The mayor always thinks big. Part of the strategy is not only to increase what is happening by residents from whom we collect, but also to increase the opportunity and availability of recycling at curbside for pedestrian waste. People can now decide what to do with the material that's in their can that before had been treated only as waste. Now it's going to be able to be viewed as a commodity. We have 210 recycling containers that are adjacent to waste containers so that people can put the same commodities that we collect at home, curbside. It now can be put in a pedestrian container downtown. And that program will be moving to our commercial corridors through some stimulus grant money, ERA grant money, very, very shortly. And we'll be on approximately 12 corridors around the city sometime at the end of this year.
Well, I'm excited about that. And we, as you know, we bought some of those same combination receptacles on Penn's campus. So,
that's great.
Yeah, it's an exciting development by the city. So I'd like to move now to what happens when that soda can or that plastic bottle is thrown in a receptacle. And I'd like to turn to Shannon Detweiler from Blue Mountain Recycling. So your company serves as a drop-off point for both the university and the city of Philadelphia. And why don't you explain a little bit about what happens to the receptacle, to the recyclables when they arrive at your institution and where you are, and a little bit about Blue Mountain.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Blue Mountain Recycling, we're located right over off of Grays Ferry Avenue, so we're right around the corner. And we've been processing the material coming out of the city of Philadelphia and University of Pennsylvania for a number of years now. We have a fully automated single stream separation system. So what happens is the trucks with the material will come in, they'll dump on the tip floor. From there, the material comes into the building via an in-feed conveyor. The first step in the process is an initial quality check. We're pulling out any trash that comes in. We're pulling out any of the random items that we get, and you name it, we've probably seen it. The bowling balls, the toasters, the lawnmower blades, all that kind of stuff. We have to get that out of the mix, or else it could seriously damage and destroy some of our separation screens. The other thing that we do is any material that comes in bagged, we break open those bags. We prefer that material not come in bags. But if it does, we break it open. The reason for that is because we use geometry and physics to separate out all the material. So if you think of a factory in reverse, rather than assembling items, we're disassembling the trash stream into its basic components. From the quality control station, the material goes over a cardboard separation screen. Cardboard, because it has a large surface area, will go up over the top. The rest of the material will fall down through. From there, the material goes through a glass breaker. The material is compressed. All the glass bottles and jars break. The broken glass filters out of the bottom. And the rest of the single stream, which at this point is everything less the cardboard and the glass, goes through a V screen. Paper, because it's two-dimensional, will go up the sides of the V screen. Containers, because they're three-dimensional, will roll down through the center of the V and make their way onto a conveyor that'll take them into our container sort line. The paper then goes through a last quality check, and then it's ready to be baled. On the container side, the material comes in another in-feed conveyor. It goes through an agitator, again, to break the glass, get the broken glass out of the mix. The containers then go under a large belt magnet to pull out all the tin. The plastics go through an optical sort. We have 3 optical sorts set up. Each one has an infrared eye that's programmed to read one of 3 different kinds of plastics. The first one is your number 1, which are your PET bottles, your water bottles, your soda bottles. The second plastic sort is for your number 2 HD naturals, which are your milk jugs. And then the third one is your number 2 HD pigmented, which are primarily your detergent bottles. So they're all separated. The infrared eye is programmed to read a specific plastic. When it identifies it, it triggers an air blower that pushes that container onto another conveyor where it goes through a last quality check, and then it's ready to be baled. At the end of the container line, we have an eddy current, which is a rare earth magnet. When spun at 2,900 RPMs, it actually repels aluminum. So that's the last sort that we do.
Well, obviously, it's a pretty sophisticated system.
Yeah.
So at the end of this, you have all these materials sorted. What are the markets that you work with, and what is the end product, or what is the recycled content? Where do these things go?
Where do they go? As a company, we prefer to support the domestic markets. However, with our proximity to the ports, a larger percentage of the material out of Blue Mountain does go export. The newspaper goes to paper mills, is turned into newspaper again. Same for the cardboard, turned into cardboard, fiberboard, linerboard. When you get into the containers, the glass currently goes to a glass processor over in South Jersey. It gets ground into cullet, and then that cullet is then used to make new glass bottles. The plastics are number 1 PET plastics. Most of them go to Mohawk, the carpet maker, so they get turned into carpet fibers. The number 2 plastics, both the HDs and the pigmented, go to a group called Envision Plastics down in North Carolina. What they do is they grind the plastics down, and then they sort the colors, and then they sell that to groups like Procter & Gamble, who then use those flakes to make new consumer bottles and packaging. The aluminum goes to Anheuser-Busch, one of the quickest turnarounds in the recycling industry. Within probably 45 days, those cans are recycled and on the store shelves again.
We have students that come to Penn from all over the country. So a lot of times they have more options for recycling where they're from. We don't, in Philadelphia, we don't recycle plastics number 3 through 7. So what is the explanation for that, and is there any plans to do that in the future?
Yeah, 3 through 7s, when we roll out any program, sustainability is the foundation of that. So, before we roll out an expansion into the 3 through 7s, and actually I should probably say when, not if. I mean, it's just a matter of time. We want to make sure that there is a long-term sustainable market for that material. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but at the end of 2008, the recycling commodities markets experienced a pretty significant collapse, quite frankly. So, the last year, markets have slowly been coming back, and at this point in time, we don't do 3 through 7s because there's not a sustainable market for it. There's some interest here and there, but we want to make sure that it's something that's going to be there 6 months, a year, 5 years from now before we turn to our customers like the university or the city of Philadelphia and tell their residents and students go ahead and include 3 through 7s, because there's nothing worse than including it in your recycling it comes to our plant, we separate it out, and then we don't have a market to send it to, and it ends up getting trashed. So the markets are coming along. You know, when you talk about the different kinds of plastic, each one's made up of different materials, each one has a different melting point. So it gets a little bit more complex, and there's definitely stable markets currently for the 1s and the 2s. The 3s and 7s are coming. It's just a matter of time. And as soon as they're there, you know, we'll let everybody know, and we'll roll out the expanded program.
That's exciting. Look forward to it. Ken, I'd like to move to you. So you're the Executive Director of Operations and Maintenance, right? So we have 40,000 people in this community, 180 buildings, 280 acres. And you oversee housekeeping, building administrators, campus recycling, and trash collection. So what happens when you throw out your soda can? Why don't you take us through the steps about how we get what we want to recycle at Penn to the facility at Blue Mountain?
Of course. So right now, in a typical building, we have collection containers, either at the desk side or central collection points, maybe in a kitchen or a conference room, as an example. So the housekeepers in the building pick up either the trash or, in this case, the recycling and the soda bottle, as Dan mentions. They pick it up, they take it out to a recycling container, the dumpster outside. There's a trash dumpster and a recycling dumpster. So in this case, the recycling goes into the recycling dumpster, and that's taken outside, like I said, by the housekeepers. I have trash and recycling trucks that go around and pick up the waste from those containers. And in the case of recycling, they take it directly to the Blue Mountain facility. So it's a pretty much direct shot into their waste stream.
And I want to point out, because I know this, we use the same trucks, but at different times of the day.
Correct. So we only have 2 trash trucks, so they serve double duty on trash and recycling. So they're not labeled trash or recycling trucks. It just depends on the time of day and which run they're making at the time.
So what are the types of things that operationally we're doing at Penn's facilities department and across campus to boost recycling rate on campus here?
Right. Okay. Well, about a year and a half ago, we actually made the biggest change that happened, a very visible change. We changed the color of the recycling containers. So all the liners in all the recycling containers are now blue, and they're labeled as recycling. So it's a very visible and easy way to show that we're recycling the waste and also the trash. We're also working on a survey which will be going out shortly to all of the building administrators, schools, and centers to find out how they're recycling right now. What our goal is to try and make it easier for people to recycle. So the thought is to try and get more desk-side recycling. There's some costs associated with it. There's a lot of operational impacts that we need to assess. And so that's what our survey is going to try and look at. But we're really trying to make it easier for people to recycle. We're also working with the schools and center on trying to standardize the containers that are inside the building. One of the biggest, a big challenge we have around here is in each school and center, the recycling containers look different. And so when in some buildings are blue, some buildings are brown, some buildings are stainless steel, and in some cases the labeling is not necessarily very obvious. It makes it hard for a person to recycle, and when it's hard, the chances are it's not going to be done or not going to be done correctly. So we're trying to standardize some of those labeling and container issues.
Thanks. I want to add one thing, because I was there last night. We had a rollout for the first time. We're starting to do more substantial recycling at the Palestra. So we're going to be working this spring on big events and how we deal with all the trash that's generated and how we divert recycling from those events as well. But before we recycle something, we have to bring it onto campus. We have to buy it, or we have to purchase it in bulk. And we're lucky to have JoAnn Murphy here from Penn Purchasing Services. So, reduce, reuse, recycle is a sustainability mantra, right? So what are we doing on Penn's campus to reduce our consumption before we have to recycle it?
So I think a big thing within the last probably 1.5 to 2 years is we really shifted the focus to make it more readily available and more easily identifiable what products are quote-unquote green products, why they're green. We rely heavily on the suppliers to explain whether it's easily recycled product or if it's recycled content, or there's a whole slew of different things. We also rely on third-party certification. So if someone comes in and says it is an environmentally preferred product, we really will ask the question, what third party? So whether it's e-peat for computers, or whether it's Green Seal or Energy Star or FSC certified for paper and wood products, we really rely on the third-party certification. But I think a big thing, the shift has been to buying more environmentally friendly products like copy paper that has a minimum 30% content. 2 years ago, fiscal 2007, we were around 10%. Fiscal 2009, we are at 20%. So there's a big jump. But from the reduction standpoint, I think another interesting thing is we've actually purchased a lot less paper. We were around, I'm rounding numbers, but about 24,000 cases of plain 8.5 by 11 white copy paper in 2007 fiscal year. In fiscal 2009, we're down to about 21,000. So 3,000 cases of paper is 15 million pieces of paper less. So by encouraging people to print less or duplex print or just think about what they're printing before they print it, we've actually reduced our consumption a lot, or our purchasing and consumption of paper.
Yeah, you've told me this before, and I think it matters to put it in context. That's about 2 tractor-trailer loads of paper that is not coming to Penn that 2 years ago was coming to Penn. I know we have a lot of different initiatives across all the business groups and all the university offices. Why don't you tell us about like the Quench preferred purchasing agreement to Quench water filters?
Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of people who are used to use the 5-gallon jugs, bottled water, and we have a university-wide contract with a company called Quench, which is a point-of-use inline filtration system. It looks like a regular cooler just without the bottle on top of it, and it's actually plumbed in. So you're reducing not only not having the bottles themselves, the 5-gallon bottles, but not having as many trucks on campus delivering those bottles. So that was a good thing we had available. And to Ken's point about making it easy, that's one of the other things that we really try to do is make the information readily available and easy for people to access so that they know, how do I find, or how do I get a Quench machine, or how do I recycle my ink and toner? We have a great program with Telrose, who is our office supply provider. They will actually come to your office and pick up your toner. They palletize the toner, the used toner, and send it back in bulk. It's an easy program. They're delivering around campus every single day of the week, so they're picking it up while they're making their deliveries. And we just actually launched a fun program for pen and marker recycling. So there's all different kinds of things that are very easy. Again, if it's easy, someone's more likely to do it. If it's not easy, they won't. So we really try to make it as easy as possible.
Well, you mentioned the efficiency of putting things together in bulk, and I know that when it comes to moving product or moving waste, transport is one of the biggest expenses. So I know we have a bulk purchasing discount. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that for people that work in our offices? Yeah.
For office supplies, Telrose, again, partnered with Office Depot. They actually offer a 3% discount on top of our already negotiated contract prices, 3% additional for any order over $200 to encourage people to consolidate their orders. It's less packaging, it's less shipping. It's actually, quite frankly, less expensive for them, and they pass some of the savings along to us. So we really encourage people to buy in bulk where they can, consolidate their orders as much as possible. This is an incentive for them to do that. And also, the flip side of it is buy in bulk, but also only buy what you need. So it's kind of a catch-22.
Well, one of the aspects of waste reduction is about a different type of consumption, the consumption that we eat. So I want to turn to Laurie, who's the director of Penn Dining, and ask Laurie, you're working on ways to reduce our waste in our cafeterias. We have a new dining partner on campus this year, Bon Appetit. Why don't you tell us about some of the initiatives at Penn Dining?
Yeah, we're really excited that this year we have finally worked out the logistics on sending our food waste to a composting facility in Wilmington. So we started that about 3 weeks ago, and we started in the kitchen. So all the kitchen waste, when you peel a potato or slice up a melon and there's rind, all those kinds of things. The chicken bones left over for making soup, all those kinds of things that would come out of your kitchen are coming out of our kitchens as well. The first week we sent 3.1 tons of food waste from the kitchens to the Wilmington Organic Composting Center, which turns it organically and aerobically into compost. No methane is produced in their process. And so we are looking forward to having that compost return, at least in some part, to our campus for compost and also be used by landscapers in the region. The second and third weeks, we're up to 3.7 tons, and again, that's just kitchen waste. Starting in about the next week, we'll start to collect waste off of student plates in dining halls, as well as at Houston Market, where we'll be collecting not only the food, but also the clamshell containers that you get something in Houston and close them, as well as cups and a lot of the the clear cups as well as paper cups. We had already made the decision to purchase those packaging products that are compostable. We just hadn't had the logistics done on who could haul our waste away and take it. We are optimistic that perhaps 80% of the waste that's coming out of 1920 Commons, our largest dining hall, is compostable. And all that will not go to the landfill, will in fact go down to Wilmington. So it's pretty exciting. We're also beginning to label things about where things go. So instead of using the language about trash and waste, it's recycling, composting, and landfill. I mean, those are really your choices. And what you buy and how you choose to dispose of them, you're seeing where it goes at the point of your choice. So if you are buying things that are made with recycled content or buying fewer things and then you're disposing of them in the most responsible way, benefits the climate, it benefits your bottom line, and hopefully we'll grow better flowers on campus.
Well, it's a great example of Penn being out front, because we're one of the first clients for this new composting center, right?
We are.
And I have an image of 3.5 tons of composted waste leaving campus, but that's a great thing for Penn. A lot of things we buy on campus can't be discarded in the usual disposal system. For instance, lab equipment and computers, fluorescent light bulbs, things like that. So I want to ask a couple questions. One to Ken to explain what we call this type of materials, universal waste, and then turn to Amy Phillips about what our IT department is doing to address these types of waste as well, and what we're doing with our electronic waste. So first, Ken, why don't you explain universal waste?
Okay. Well, the term universal waste is an EPA term, basically, that defines a group of materials that cannot be put into a regular landfill. It's not necessarily hazardous, but it's not good for the environment to take those type of products and put them into a normal landfill. So it's a category of material that's handled special. In the case of the university, all of that material is handled through the Environmental Health, Radiation, and Safety Office, and they treat it as controlled substances. So examples of that are like computer monitors, batteries, light bulbs that might have mercury in them, so fluorescent tube light bulbs, those type of things. So in the case of light bulbs, we collect them, we centrally manage and store them. When we get a full container, we let the Environmental Health, Radiation, Safety Office know, and then we arrange for a specific disposal. The IT equipment is arranged through the ISC office, so it's all, they're just centrally managing the disposal to make sure it doesn't get into a normal non-protected landfill.
So Amy, why don't we turn to you? You're the director of IT for ISC, Information Systems and Computing. What are we doing to encourage a proper disposal of electronic equipment and cell phones and gadgets and all the things we use to get our work done here?
Well, I think that, first of all, just to mention that I think we're doing a really good job, but we still have a lot of room for improvement, as we do with all of our recycling things. But last year we recycled about 125,000 pounds of electronics, and that was just through one vendor, Elemental, which many of us on campus use a lot. So I think we're definitely heading in the right direction. I work for ISC, which is the Central Computing Division, but there's lots of computing staff all around campus. As everything at Penn, we're decentralized. So there's about 700, other IT folks out there, and each one has a little bit of power to make a decision about what to do with their materials when it reaches their end of life. So one of the things that we in ISC have really been concentrating on is trying to get IT staffs from around campus to put this issue on their radar and to make sure that they have a plan that's sustainable and really addressing this within their individual units. And we're doing that in a couple of ways. We launched last year a green IT website, which is
basically targeting all kinds of users, but IT professionals specifically, to kind of give them guidance about what they can do with their computers when they're reaching their end of life. I've been working with a group of IT staff from around campus, and we put together a campus green IT team, and we're meeting regularly to discuss these issues and again, to just make sure that we as a campus and our IT fields are moving in the right direction as far as our disposal and our energy consumption, everything that's green and related to computing. And so a lot of it is awareness, a lot of it is reaching out and trying to bring people together to really make sure that Penn's on the right track, and I think we are, IT-wise.
So let me turn back to you, Commissioner Tolson, because a lot of people have all these same equipment at home. Maybe they have fluorescent light bulbs at home as well. What does the city, how does the city deal with these issues, and what special types of pickup are available through your department for those type of difficult or unusual to dispose of materials?
Sure. I think it's an excellent question. I think that there's two notions I would really want to impart to students who live off campus and who are receiving services from the city. One is be a good neighbor. Consider the fact that you're in a community where people care about the community where they are, and that whatever you may do with your materials, whether they be a universal waste or some type of normal municipal waste, you've got to dispose of it in the proper way so that it does not cause a problem within your community. If you were to have, say, motor oil or pesticides or some other type of chemicals that you've used, throwing that in the trash can could cause a huge problem for your neighbors. It could drip on the street, could cause a fire in a truck. Those things are big deals. Second thing I would say that people should think about as an important notion is consider what are you going to do with a product once you're finished using it before you buy it. Meaning, don't purchase things that you may not know how you should properly dispose of them, or if the proper disposal could be a problem. So if you were, I remember one time doing some work in my garden, and I wanted something to make a flower bed with, and somebody offered me some free railroad ties. Well, free is not free. Those railroad ties have arsenic in them, and they're a real problem to process after the fact. So it was not in my best interest to use that type of material. We want people to consider that before they buy materials that they may use inside their home. But to the question of what can they do while working with the city if they have city collection, we have what we call household hazardous waste collection days. And those are about a dozen days that occur through the calendar year, where we work in cooperation with the 4 counties in our area, and we receive all types of hazardous waste, whether it be the pesticides, the enamel paint, or even e-waste. So those materials certainly can be processed properly if you have city collection. There's a way to do it. Check on our website to determine what things you cannot put in your trash stream so that you do not cause harm in your community. Determine what is the best way to process your materials out of your own household. Be a good neighbor and understand that there are ways to handle all those materials. Check the website and you can pick up a household hazardous waste recycling day at any time, probably most months during the time when people want to do it.
Thanks. We do have a big student population lives in the neighborhood, so that's good advice. We'll turn to the student perspective now. Dan Sanchez, you were elected to the Undergraduate Assembly, and you're the chair of the Housing, Sustainability, and Facilities Department. Okay. So, speaking of being a good neighbor, a lot of students live in very close proximity, someone in the same room a lot of times. Why are students engaged about recycling? What is it about recycling and waste management that always seems to get the students excited, and what are some of the student initiatives going on? How is the UA working to promote recycling on campus?
Well, thanks a lot, Dan. I'm really happy to be here. I think I see 2 reasons why I guess students get interested in recycling as opposed to other environmental issues. The first one is that recycling, it can just be a really big part of your everyday life. You think about consumer products, you think about food, and the packaging it comes in, and I think up to 5 times a day, someone really can just, take a second to stop and think and recycle. I think just because it's very high visibility and because it's so easy to change your behavior, students can get quite interested in it. The second reason, I think it's related to the first, is that there's a lot students can do to improve recycling. You can get involved by disseminating information about recycling, by improving recycling infrastructure, by changing your habits, or even by encouraging a place like CVS or the Fresh Grocer to carry like a plastic recyclable cup. For example, most of the cups you buy are plastic number 6, which is the red polystyrene cup, which can't be recycled. But if if Fresh Grocer carried plastic 1 or plastic number 2, I think it could have a huge impact on our recycling right here on campus, and I think a lot of students understand that. I guess going towards what the Undergraduate Assembly is doing, I also see 2 things. The first is a pilot program that we're starting in Fisher-Hassenfeld College House, which is over in the Quad, with recycling bins. So what the UA did is they purchased 2 bins for every room, 1 for paper, 1 for plastic, glass, and aluminum, and distributed them to every single room. I guess it was a little bit over 600 bins to allow students to recycle. We really thought when we were planning that if you make the choice as easy as possible to recycle, and you take it to really where a lot of waste is generated, aside from around on campus, but actually in the student room, that it could have a huge impact on recycling. The second initiative we're taking on is a list of sustainability best practices. We're calling it the Green Events Checklist. That I guess it's a Penn student government-wide collaboration. So that includes, the Undergraduate Assembly. It also includes all our class boards with our class presidents. The people who handle elections, the people who handle just basically all the events on campus, from our Spring Fling Festival to really the people who fund small student group events. So basically, it's a checklist of basically very easy to do but very easily forgotten, I guess green practices. So that could be providing a proper recycling bin at your event, or a sign that tells you where you should be putting your trash. Whether that means considering the size of the space you're using when you're putting on an event so you use less electricity. It's just a lot of it's a list of recommendations that we're hoping can really energize students to be interested in how they can make their events more sustainable, and hopefully could really change student behavior on the whole. So we're just really excited about that, and I just also wanted to thank everyone else here for having as much interest as I think students have in this issue.
I think we do. And I think it's great that you talk about the purchasing power of students. I mean, you think about 20,000 people are here. They're all making independent decisions when they go to the grocery store. And we should work together as much as possible to make sure that people are informed about the choices they can make. And of course, events are an easy opportunity to improve our recycling rate. So we want to work together on those, like we did at the basketball game last night. We recruited the cheerleaders to go through the stands and pick up the bottles from the people that were sitting in the stands during timeouts. The governor was there, so he's aware of this program, like he always is. So that's great. I'd like to open up to the floor. Anyone have questions for the panel? We have pretty much every base covered here with the expertise to my left. Does anyone have any questions about the city's programs or about the university's programs? And Sarah Jane has a mic. Since we're videotaping, you should. Here we have a question. Go ahead.
Hi. Is it?
It's not on.
It's on? Okay. So for students who live off campus, what's the easiest way for them to start recycling? Because a lot of I'm with PEG, the Penn Environmental Group, and a lot of questions come to us from students who live off campus. How do I get a recycling bin? When do I put it out? And we're not sure where this information is available and where exactly is the best place for them to get access to recycling bins, whether they have to buy them or whether they're handed out, etc. So if you could elaborate on what information we should be passing on to these students, that would be great. Thanks.
Surely, thank you. I would love the opportunity to collaborate with your organization to get more containers to this community if necessary. But with regard to the containers that students use, you can use any container that's, say, under 30 gallons. You don't need to use the blue container that the city has distributed to so many people. You could use an old waste basket from your kitchen, which is a great reuse idea. We have stickers. I failed to bring any today, but I'll send some to your organization if you'd like. They can be placed on the bin so that they're readily identifiable as recycling containers. And off you go to recycling. If you want to know more information about which commodities should be placed in the containers, you can visit our website. We also have literature that we gladly share. If there is an organized entity on campus that works with students who are off campus in terms of understanding city regulations and rules, how to be a good neighbor, things like that, we would gladly work with them to try to increase the educational opportunities in the community.
Yeah, that's a great response. It's a great question. At the sustainability team in the facilities department, we're working with University City District. So the University City District is a private nonprofit, and they hold seminars for landlords in the area. You know, there's a lot of small landlords in West Philly, and we're trying to get them to be more sustainable. Things like swapping out lights for compact fluorescents, things like that, but also to provide the people that live in those apartments with a way to recycle their recyclables, because a lot of times they're obligated, because everyone in the city is required to recycle. They use a private hauler, so we want to make sure that they have all the tools they need to make sure what you put in recycling gets to the right place. So that's a great question. Thanks.
Can I add one more point there?
Sure.
You just reminded me of something. Another point, because every student that lives off campus may not be receiving city collection. We could do collect from those facilities that have 6 or fewer units, or some places may set out too much trash to have city collection. If you know of a facility or building that is not recycling, so if you live in a facility that is not recycling and you want to encourage them to recycle, if you'd also contact our department, there's information through their website, or call my office, 686-5460. We will gladly have some officers go out to help educate the landlords about the responsibility to recycle.
So I'll just repeat that number because I wrote it down. That's 215-686-5460. That's
Yes.
the streets department. Great.
That's my number, actually.
Oh, it's your number. Okay. We get a lot of calls. I should follow up on that. If you have questions about your office or your suite where you work or your college house, you can email any questions about recycling at sustainability@upenn.edu, and we'll respond to that as soon as we can. And we want you to report problems that you see or that you think you see about recycling, so that we can either set the record straight or address them. Any other questions? Go ahead, Ann.
So, if there was anything more that could be done to improve our recycling rate, do any of you have a suggestion of how we have a goal, a 5-year goal of doubling our Penn rate from 20% to 40%. So I'm looking for suggestions of how to, I think we're at 25 about now.
Over 25, yeah.
A little over 25. So we still have 15% to go.
Right.
So any thoughts, since each of you, kind of look at a piece of this? I'd love to hear it.
I think we all have some answers. Anyone from the panel first?
I'll start on the end and work our way down. Certainly, composting offers a great opportunity, and I know that we're doing some work with Penn to try to improve the composting efforts, and I heard the talk about composting that is going on here. That is a great avenue for a great opportunity that we have not yet capitalized on. There's not a significant amount of green waste here, but to the extent possible, we should be looking at that and determine how we can compost or recycle it otherwise. I'd also say that within the present commodities that are recycled, where there's opportunity for improvement, is mixed paper. A lot of mixed paper is still being trashed. I think part of it is misconceptions about identity theft and concern there. People throw away materials that have their junk mail and things with their name and address on it because they don't want to put it in recycling for fear that it's going to be removed by somebody that could take advantage of it. But the fact is, the little corner where you have your name and address, if you take that off, now is rendered valueless to anyone, and materials should be recycled. So we have a lot of tons of paper that is mixed paper that is being missed from the recycling stream from our present list of commodities.
So just to expand a little bit on the recycling rate, just a quick clarification. So the percentage that Dan is mentioning, we're about 27% right now. That's based on the RecycleMania calculation methodology. So the composting that Laurie mentioned, it does boost our overall recycling rate, but the actual composted material is not counted as a recycled product. This is just based on the rules of the competition. So what it actually is doing is reducing our waste stream. So one of the biggest things I think we can do, and we're actually fairly good on this compared to our peers, is reduce the amount of material we produce in the first place. So just like JoAnn mentioned, you just don't print as much. It reduces our waste stream. It does overall increases our recycling rate. So we have done waste stream audit surveys. We've actually had people go through and look at and pull at and look at every single piece of material inside dumpsters. And what we found is that our potential diversion rate based on products that we can currently recycle is over 50%. So doubling our recycling rate to about 40%, as Ann mentioned, we think is a totally realistic objective. Again, our potential is over 50%, and that's primarily paper and aluminum cans and cardboard and stuff. So the real thing is just getting the awareness out, making it easy for people, like we mentioned, getting the containers out there and available for people, make sure they're properly labeled, and then just education. So Dan mentioned at the sporting events, we have people go through and collect the material to make sure it's there. But in some cases, we're finding that certain places don't have recycling containers at all yet. So as we get more and more people involved in recycling, we increase the awareness. Places like that don't have recycling containers available to be used, we'll start getting feedback, and then we can get them corrected.
Anyone else? I have a few things to add. I'm the sustainability coordinator here at Penn, so my job is mostly characterized by all the things I haven't done yet. That's how I think about it. So it makes for a lot of late nights. But a couple things that are starting in pilot is lab waste, for instance. For a long time, all the lab glass was very specific and very special. Well, Matt Lane and the chemistry department have started recycling lab waste. So we have a meeting set up with Matt to learn what he's doing and expand that to all the labs on campus, in the med school, and the vet school, and the biology departments, and the physics departments, and so forth. I'm glad you mentioned composting. There was a student group in Meyer College House, or Stouffer College House, the Meyer building, about 200 or 300 suites there, and they wanted to do composting for their dormitory. And so we've supported them through the Penn Green Fund. They got a small grant to put up a small composting vessel in the yard outside of their dormitory. We met with our pest management expert and consultant, which was a great meeting to make sure that we could do this without making more problems. But they have established a protocol where they'll take their kitchen waste, put it in small containers, which are sealed, pet-proof, and then move it through a series of composting captains to the small recycling or composting center that they've set up, and then we can use that on campus. So it's a small pilot, but it's something that has potential. And then I think something that Dan said is really, really important. It's about purchasing. We're doing a great job purchasing things that are used by the Penn community. But there's a lot of vendors on campus and right adjacent to campus that we haven't really reached out to yet. There's vendors in Houston Hall. There's vendors in our other food courts. There's street vendors that can be somewhat resistant to advice on what they should be selling. But the idea is, if as much as we can, make contracts or encourage people to only stock their shops, stock their restaurants or food trucks with things that can be composted or recycled. That would really boost the overall recycling on campus. So that would be a big help. And the red cups are a great idea, a great thing to mention. They're not recyclable. You see them around campus a lot. I live right off campus, so walking back and forth to campus, you might see them after a party. in the trash. And if everyone that had a party where they served soft drinks, they used a recycled cup, that would be a big step. And then something that we're working on, a pilot this spring, is outdoor recycling. We have what we call triplets. You know, there's trash, there's paper, and there's bottles, cans, and plastic for commingling. What we're doing is working with the University Landscape Architect to gang all of the single recycling, or single trash and recycling buckets or receptacles together, so that every time you go to a recycling place where you're going to dispose of your trash in the heart of campus, you have 3 choices, so that it makes it very easy for people to do that. And that's a great way to save money. All we're doing is replacing the tops and ganging them together. We're not buying the big bins, which are kind of expensive. So those are outdoor recycling, and Ken's purchase of the big bellies that are on Walnut and Spruce. Those are a lot of things we're doing to make it easy when you're just walking around to make the right choice. Great question. And another question.
So this says, this cup, says that it's 60% post-consumer fiber sleeve and a first ever 10% post-consumer fiber cup. So can these be recycled?
The question might be can they be composted? Right, because recycled.
Probably not, just because of the wax coating that's on them. The handle piece that you just took off the cup, absolutely. But it's the wax coating that's an issue. But to Laurie's point, I think that is something that could be
Right. So what we're working with is vendor partners to make sure that the products that their items are served in. So we have a recent agreement with Coca-Cola, and at fountain locations, beverage fountain locations, the cups that are used there have the highest available post-consumer content and are compostable. And as that market evolves, they've agreed to change out those cups and do that. All of the products that Bon Appetit uses, the paper cups don't have a lining, so they can go right into composting.
Well, that's a great example. Like last night, we started recycling at the Palestra, but the plan is for a year from now, everything we sell there should be either recyclable or compostable, and hopefully in a year from now, we'll have our composting program will be robust enough so that the Cracker Jacks and the popcorn and the soft drinks and the fountain drinks, everything has a place to go, and we generate no waste at our sporting events. That's the goal. We've started talking to Penn Relays about making that a much more sustainable event, and that's something to look forward to. Another question?
On the composting. On the composting, just a suggestion, because a lot of people eat lunch in their offices. Mm-hmm. So down the road, if we think of having, compost buckets in the office and then someplace they can deposit it, I think that would be huge, because I certainly have fruit and stuff like that. That's all compostable.
We've already gotten requests from students who live in some of the tall college houses with kitchens that they want to be able to individually compost. So as soon as we get the final piece of the front of the house consumer waste worked out in the next couple of weeks, then someone who's doing that in their apartment is welcome to bring it to our location. We'll ask them to be careful, make sure they have the information about no plastics, no metals to go into food waste composting. But yeah, we're happy to do that. So.
And one more thing.
Sure. Well, let me just respond to that, because one of the issues is about pest management. But in fact, if you're already eating there, the materials are in your office. So it's just a matter of being smart about it and managing the path so that we get it to the right place without doing anything wrong. So go ahead.
It's about changing behavior, ultimately. So, but Commissioner, I have a question for you. So I live across from a park in South Philly, and we've actually started composting in our neighborhood already. But one of the things that we've been trying to do is get the city to put recycling bins around our park. And a lot of us just put our own recycling bins around the park, and we have a very kind of green community. But is there any plans for the city to actually put recycling bins in the city parks?
Not into city parks as of yet. As I mentioned, we're buying about 500 recycling containers. They would go along with the solar-powered litter baskets that we have that would go in commercial corridors. But I suspect that our park system will be next. We have introduced that concept to the Fairmont Park staff and encouraged them to consider it.
Well, we love big bellies around our park. We just can't afford it.
You got another question?
In the back.
We're running short on time, but why don't we take one more?
I'll be quick.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Sonia Thomas, and I'm a senior at the University of Pennsylvania undergraduate. I have a question branching off of that about unintended consequences. So I've seen the big bellies go up. First, they sort of started, it seems, in the Center City District, and then they started blossoming in the University City District. And obviously, these are much richer areas of the city. How can we, both as a Penn community and as the community of Philadelphia, encourage these kinds of initiatives in poorer areas of the city so that it doesn't just target elite groups?
That's a great question. So I'm going to, why don't you take a crack
Sure,
at that
it's a
first?
very good question. Very good question. The use of the solar-powered cans was a strategy to, one, become greener, reduce truck emissions, greener because it would cost less to collect if we were able to reduce staff. In order to reduce staff, we had to take out an entire route of service. Thus, where a truck was routed, mandated where the litter cans could go. Our communities around the city get collection 1 to 6 times per week. Downtown, we were doing collections at 19 times per week. Our biggest bang and return to pay for the cost of a $3,000 litter can was to try to reduce staff along with that. Though we got a grant to purchase many of these cans, we still needed to make it sound. You know, sustainability goes lots of different ways in terms of how to measure the impact. So that is why Center City was done first, not just in the Center City District, but actually was all the entire Center City route. So it went from Spring Garden Street to South Street, river to river, covering our tourist areas, actually some commercial, some residential areas as well. Not necessarily looking at the economics or the ability of people to pay for the cans or their ability to pay anything else. The next step was, and those initial grants were received through the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, at the state level. The next round of baskets that we're going to receive are going to come out of ARA funds or the stimulus dollars that are going to buy the cans that we're going to put through at all of our commercial corridors throughout neighborhoods in the city. So in Oak Lane, in West Philadelphia, 52nd Street, we get containers, or 60th Street, we get containers. But that's going to come with the next round of grants that we receive. So that is why it started in a particular area, because it actually, we were able to reduce the staff from 33 that service those Center City containers down to 8.
Wow.
But we could not eliminate staff on the commercial corridor routes because there was only two teams of people that handled them anyway. So there wasn't the opportunity for a staff reduction if we were to tackle the external routes. It was an improvement in terms of litter, beautification, but it was not also an improvement in terms of efficiency with staff.
That's a great question, though.
It was an excellent question.
I think what you were talking about is both economic savings but for the city, which is, as we all know, a big issue. But it's really changing behavior of all the residents of the city. And that's certainly the goal of making Philadelphia the greenest city in the country. It's also the goal of the sustainability programs at Penn. We really want to change the normal behavior so that recycling becomes the de facto solution, the choice that you make. And changing behaviors is fundamental to what we're trying to do, so we need everyone's support in that, everyone's participation. So again, let me wrap up by giving you our website, www.upenn.edu/sustainability. And we have all of the recycling signage and all the guidelines to how we recycle at Penn there. And again, if you have follow-up questions or something you didn't think about, sustainability@upenn.edu. We'll get to our team, and we'll get back to you on that. So I want to thank the panelists. I think this is extremely informative, very knowledgeable group. Thank you, Commissioner, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Everyone else had a short commute, but you had to come all the way from downtown.
Through the snow.
Thanks very much, and thanks everyone for attending today.